Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first Google Hangout parent discussion. If this works out, we might do this once a month or more frequently with different family vloggers on parenting topics, hot topics.
Not hot topic, though.
No,
Just
not
hot parenting topics.
yes, hot parenting topics. So really, this is like low pressure, nonpartisan. You know, we're not going to get like political or anything. Let's not crack any party or anything like that. Just real casual water cooler conversation. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves.
The way we generally do this is the way you look in the bottom of the screen to everybody else is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to call it left to right. We'll just call it the name. Genevieve, go ahead.
So really quick, when you introduce yourself, go ahead, talk about yourself, your background, and your YouTube channel and what that's about.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm Genevieve. I have a channel called Our Tiny Kingdom, and we have two other channels. My husband and I are two former teachers who decided to homeschool. I'm K through 6 and he is 6 through 12. I had brain surgery about this time last year. So our vlog is basically about just like rebuilding, homeschooling, just juggling everyday life.
Pretty good. Very nice. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Meredith, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Meredith. I'm surviving as mom. I vlog about my life as a stay-at-home mom. I have 4 young boys. I have 2 5- and 8-year-old twins. I also oh wait, it's repeating on me for some reason.
Oh, if you kind of mute you may have the YouTube video going in the background if you're watching the live stream so you can see the chat.
Oh, there you go. Sorry about that. There it is. Okay. Sorry. So yes, I vlog about my life as a stay-at-home mom while I also battle a chronic illness, and I do like recipes and cleaning and just general advice and hauls and stuff. So a lot of stuff, I guess.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're here. Robert, you're next up.
Hi, my name's Robert Angle, and I'm married to my wife of 16 years. We have 2 children. They're 15 and 10 currently. One of them is in an online charter school. The other one is still in public school. And at our channel, which we nickname Better Days Are Coming, we just highlight the things that we do together as a family, whether it's hiking, going to an amusement park, taking vacations, and the like.
Great. Sounds good.
Great to have you all. We are Josh and Leah of Swell Family. We recently just started our, hold on.
No.
Oh. We just started our family vlog channel, but previously I had a channel. It's called Swell Mommy. I did DIYs on that channel. I still do, but haven't for a while. And then Josh has actually daily vlogged for over 600 days.
I did.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah.
Great job.
Tough on everybody around me more than me, really.
Yeah.
And then, and so we ended up deciding to just go ahead and do a family vlog channel so we could combine forces and kind of move vlogging off of his channel, because he is more into like preparedness,
DIY, a lot of DIY stuff. Yeah. But like daddy DIY, as I call it.
Totally.
And you guys screaming baby.
Yeah.
Really screaming. Not happy with our friend that came over apparently.
Oh, that's all right.
I don't know if Leah mentioned it. We have a 3-year-old, almost 4 in September, and a 1.5-year-old Edison who's pitching a fit.
Oh, those are tough ages.
They can be, indeed. Okay, he's happy if Leah's holding him, so we're gonna have a guest star for a moment.
Okay, hi guys.
So, Leah, you had a topic for today.
Yeah.
And for those
oh no, not happy here.
The topic is.
Well, let's start with a getting to know you question, so everybody can kind of break the ice, know each other. And that's, if you didn't have to sleep at night, what would you do with your time?
Oh man.
Oh.
We'll go in the same order to keep it easy. Genevieve, you're in the hot seat for the first question.
I would probably work. I actually like what I do, which is, you know, vlogging. We have a website. I do social media and stuff like that, and I actually really enjoy it. It was a hobby that started off in college. I started like a celebrity gossip blog, and it turned into a job. So that's what I would do.
Are you 100% like social media, YouTube kind of thing? That's your job?
Yep.
Oh, good for you. Great.
Yeah.
Meredith, how about you?
What would I do if I didn't have to sleep at night? I actually say this all the time. I wish I didn't have to sleep. What would I do? I say I'll get housework done, but I know that's not going to happen. I don't have that great discipline. What would I do? I'd probably just like watch TV or something. But in a perfect world, my house would be spotless and I'd have like all kinds of pastries cooked in a perfect world.
And Robert.
If I didn't sleep at night, well, let's see here. And I probably need to sleep more, so this is actually kind of easy to answer. I always like to do something constructive. I can't stand television, so whether I'm doing some research on a certain topic or whether I'm vlogging, editing a video, I'm into music, so I play keyboard, guitar, and bass, so I could be practicing that, trying to master a song. So anything where I'm doing something constructive and not just sitting around and doing nothing. So that would be nice. I would say there needs to be 30 hours in a day instead of 24.
Totally.
Yeah. There was some movie where they talked about that, going to a 30-hour day schedule. Anyway, it was with aliens or something like that. I'm a big nerd. I'm a ham radio operator. We recently Leia and I started selling on Amazon FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. My background, all of my hobby stuff that I do YouTube videos on, I don't have enough time for any of that stuff, let alone enough time to do my standard YouTube video, blah, blah, blah. Leia knows, which she will attest to. Yeah, why don't you just go ahead? What do you think? What would you do?
I would do everything on my crafts list.
I would voluntarily sleep.
I would sit down. I would get so many things done. I mean, the house would be spotless for sure.
That's right. That's a dream, I think.
You know, meth has got a bad rap.
Wait, what's that?
Meth, it's got a bad rap. If you do meth.
You have to be productive, though, right?
Oh, right. That whole crime.
Yeah.
When I was in high school and I'd stay up all night studying, I'd have like 3 cups of tea with like double tea bags, and I would be wired for the rest of the day. I would be up all night. I'd be great.
Yeah, I remember pulling all-nighters. That's just, it feels like such a punishment now when I pull an all-nighter.
Oh, forget it.
My longest time, 3 full nights, 4 full days without sleep, but I would never do it again. Since then, I've built up an immunity to caffeine. So coffee, tea, soda, it doesn't affect me whatsoever.
You mind us asking why you had to stay up for so long?
I didn't have to. I chose to back when I was young and unwise.
So do you start hallucinating? I mean, after a certain point, you've got to get some kind of like visual hallucination, right?
It was I was on the 4th day I had to go to work and I could barely stay awake, so I was constant. And I delivered pizza at the time, so I was constantly eating to try to keep the carbs going on. And then when I did sleep, I was still living with my parents at the time. So when I did fall asleep, I think it was probably like 4 in the morning on a Sunday night / Monday morning. And then I didn't wake up for like a full 27, 28 hours. My mom actually was like, she tried to come down and wake me up. I wouldn't wake up. She thought I was on drugs or dead. And, but no, I was just tired, exhausted.
I read somewhere that beyond either 3 or 4 days of no sleep, your brain actually starts to just shut down on its own. It forces you to sleep.
Well, it did.
You start doing little micro naps. The micro naps are like, start queuing up, and it happens without you even controlling it, from what I've heard.
We have a visitor.
Hi, visitor. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, guest.
So the topic, the big topic for today's chat is school vouchers. How do parents really feel about them? Currently, vouchers are used for students with disabilities or from disadvantaged backgrounds, and allows them to attend schools that could better serve them, like private schools that have more resources to dedicate per student. There's a proposal on the books that would allow all students to be able to use the voucher system. And the voucher system takes public money, the government funds that would be used to educate each individual student in a public school, and allows the family to use that towards a private school of their choosing. What is that? Okay.
I don't know.
So this change is under the concept that all families should be able to be free to choose the public, private, charter, magnet, religious, or homeschool that's right for them, which is a great educational choice. But the downside is that public schools wouldn't receive funding for any student that is no longer attending their school, which could result in some schools being severely stripped of funding if there's a mass exodus from their student body. So how do you guys currently educate your children, and how do you feel about school vouchers?
We'll start with Genevieve.
Awesome. So we homeschool, and I didn't come to that decision lightly. I kind of made that decision though before I had children. It was while I was in my first internship. I did it in a kindergarten classroom, and it was so much testing, and the kids were just so stressed out all the time. And I'm like, where's the letter people? Like, what happened to like centers and nap time and all the fun parts of kindergarten? And so that's how I decided that we would homeschool. I could see both sides of it. For me personally, I wouldn't take the voucher because we do homeschool, and I don't want any restrictions on how we choose to educate our children. But for other people, I think that there's a bigger problem with the education system, and we need to stop putting Band-Aids on it and do something bigger to fix it. I also think that, sorry, I have a kid going in and out. I also think that I believe in the separation of church and state, so I don't think that public funds should be going to private schools.
Okay, so I have a little insider information. I hear that you are or were at some point out in public as a teacher. You're working for a public school, is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so obviously you have a background as a teacher, and so you took that move towards homeschooling based off of kind of your intimate knowledge of being a teacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My husband also, he's a teacher. He was formerly a teacher. I'm K through 6, he's 6 through 12. So he taught high school. I taught elementary. So yeah, we both agreed. It wasn't even really a decision that was like debatable. We both were in agreement that homeschool was best for our kids.
That's awesome. Meredith, what do you think?
I'm gonna go last on this one. I want to hear everybody else first. Robert,
what do you think?
Well, as far as the use of public money and vouchers for families or whatnot, that's kind of political, and I don't really have an opinion in regards to that. I will tell you what I'm doing with my children, though, is my daughter, who's 15, she's homeschooled at the moment, and my son is still in public school. And I always kind of thought that, based on my experience as a child, high school was very rough on me. And so I kind of knew raising my kids that eventually I would probably homeschool them. And so when my daughter got to a point where things started to get rough on her, then we went ahead and brought her home. And but when I say homeschool, I don't mean like a traditional homeschool. We are taking advantage of the online charter schools. And so I know that the local school system here where I live would be getting a certain allotment of money for my daughter, but now the online charter school, which is a public school, is publicly funded, is getting those funds now. But for me, it takes care of the needs of my family and the needs of my daughter, and this is just a parenting choice that I had to make, and I'm actually pretty glad that this option was available.
So for me, it always comes down to choice and the options and being adaptive to the child. And if vouchers give that level of flexibility, then I support it. And it is true. I think that Leia's original comment that she made, that in some cases, some public schools may find themselves having a really hard time making ends meet. At the same time, I don't think that is something that we should look at that more favorably than having the right choices for our individual child. And I know that, as you know, because we live in a society, we have to think with some type of social mindset. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to capitulate to what's best for my kid and the options available to them. So I support them from that level alone. And then there's various degrees of differences within that. What do you think?
Well, you know, I feel like this kind of opens up a door to what is potentially another form of welfare fraud. This is a little side note, because a few of us moms were talking about this, and I thought it was really interesting, because I'd like the choice, if our kids weren't in a good school district, to be able to put them in another school district, or to take my tax dollars and go put it into a private school that would better serve my kid. I think that would be great. But if parents are allowed to opt to homeschool their kids, and then they're able to get the per student budget in their pockets as a result of the homeschooling, I think you end up in a situation where maybe families that have a large number of kids, especially those in like lower performing areas where maybe the parents don't even try to get the kid to go to school. Currently, you know, the school districts, they go after those parents. You know, they'll even contact CPS if a student is regularly missing school. But if you move to this voucher system, you may be looking at the parents who wouldn't bother getting their kids to school anyway, saying, hey, I'm actually just going to go ahead and homeschool them. Give me the money, and I'll keep, you know, my 1, 2, 3 kids, because I think each student costs $8,000 or more to educate a year. I don't know, Genevieve might have a better idea of the figure. But if people can get those in their pockets, I would be concerned that there would be a certain demographic that would take advantage of that kind of budget loophole.
Literally fraud, like literally doing it purely to get the money out of the system, and the children suffer.
Is that really what's on that's being proposed right now?
Yes.
Okay, I know that's not the way it is now. It sounds very odd. So
right, exactly. That's what's being proposed. If everybody is able to do whatever they want, from homeschooling to religious school to private school to charter school, whatever, that money that would normally go to that public school then goes to wherever the parent allocates. And if it's homeschooling, then it goes to the parent to homeschool.
Well, there's still certain qualifications, right? They still have to meet some standards. Maybe Genevieve can talk about that. What standards do the kids have to meet even when they're on homeschool or homeschool?
Well, here in Florida, you have to have an evaluation at the end of every year by a teacher for your student, and you do have to report attendance. So I can see totally what you're saying. But I think the idea with the voucher is that you would take that money that your child would get for going to school. And so they're saying that, okay, a parent couldn't afford to send their child to public school if it costs $10,000. But if they only have to make up $1,000, then perhaps they would be able to afford that. But I see what you're saying with a lot of parents keeping that money, and then it ultimately is the child that suffers if they're not following through with the child's education, because it is possible for them to just get brushed over, especially if more of them are doing it, and they're just getting left behind, and no one's aware that the child isn't being educated.
Yeah. So let me see where I am with this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Meredith, going out your turn. You go.
Yeah, I was honestly having a little bit of a hard time understanding what the voucher system was, but I think I got a handle on it at this point. All right. So for me, I come from both sides. I grew up poor, so we were on welfare. We did rely on the government for all of that, and the public schools and their generosity. And now I'm not poor anymore. So now we're paying into all of that stuff with our tax dollars. Here's the thing though. I've seen, unfortunately, how many people take advantage of the system and they abuse it. And it's just like the welfare system, like you said. It's exactly the same thing. I can think of a handful of people off the top of my head, not proudly, who would take advantage. Who would say, my kid doesn't want to go to school anyway, stay home and let's collect the money. And I realized that at least in certain states, I imagine there's some kind of like regulation where they come in and check on the schoolwork that's being done. Like you said, Genevieve, like they check, like they do tests or something. But I'm sure there's places out there. I mean, I hate to use this as an example, but I was watching Wife Swap recently. Do you guys watch that show? It's so funny. So they swapped these two families, and this one mother, she was homeschooling her 3 boys. They were like 5, 12, and like 10 or something like that. But they weren't homeschooling. They couldn't write their letters. They didn't know basic reading or math. Like I think the 10-year-old was reading at like a kindergarten level. She wasn't really teaching them anything. So that's someone who would be taking full advantage of the system. She thought that by taking them to an amusement park, that was teaching them. So there's other people like that in the world who will take advantage, or just people who just don't give a crap about their kids because we know they exist, and they'll just pocket the money for their own benefit.
Right. It seems also like, so then the flip side of it is, okay, let's say there's no vouchers and then everybody must go to a public school or a private school. So you know, private school, you're already getting taxed, right, for your public school funds, and then you've got to add more money to get to private school for arguably what people call a better education, although that's not definitively proven statistically. What I find interesting, though, is that we still have kids every day that go through the public school system and they still fall through the cracks, right? Their parents are just not engaged, or the kids just refuse to work or whatever. And they really just, you know, show up and tune out. And then that's it. Of course, that's not a huge number, probably statistically. But at the same time, I don't know that it would be any appreciably more with a homeschool or with a voucher program using alternative means of education. I don't know that the result, if you took, you know, the bell curve of the educated people you get out of the public school system, that having a voucher program would make that bell curve look any different. My argument is that it probably would not.
I don't think so.
I mean, it's my understanding that for homeschoolers, I think there was originally a voucher proposal years ago for homeschooling, and one of the things that there's like a homeschoolers association, and I think that organization basically said that most homeschoolers, and again, Genevieve, you'll have to speak to this, or you don't have to speak to this, but you're in a better place to speak to it than I am, is with a lot of homeschoolers don't want to have to speak to what the government mandates as minimum like achievement criteria. So they would opt just not to get the check. So whatever their student would be receiving would just stay with the Department of Education.
Oh, that's interesting. So basically, if they set the bar to entry too high, then you may not even qualify for the voucher.
Right.
So that your kid's stuck going back to the public school anyway. So yeah, it's interesting because if the voucher system is in the hands of the government to distribute, then they can set whatever rules they want, and those rules could be overly difficult to achieve, and then you're right back into the system that you were trying to get out of by supporting vouchers.
I mean, I don't think it would be overly difficult. I mean, I feel as
no, but they could do whatever they want. There's nothing to stop that, right? I mean, they could make the rules more difficult, and your state to state could vary.
I'm assuming they'd have to set up the criteria and the expectation at the beginning of the year so that the parents could comply, which actually then kind of defeats the purpose of homeschooling, I think, right? Like if the government's saying this is your curriculum, you just teach it.
Right. That's true. And that's why for me, I wouldn't want to accept the voucher because my son has SPD. So I like to change up his curriculum. I actually don't go by a standard curriculum. Being a teacher, at the beginning of every year, I download the standards for his grade, and I write his curriculum weekly based on what he needs to achieve. And I switch it up. He does a lot of hands-on activities. We go on a lot of field trips and stuff. And I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want it to be so much book work, so much testing and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons I chose to homeschool him. So that's, for me as a homeschooler, I wouldn't want the voucher or any of those extra restrictions that would come along with the money, because there's always going to be strings attached.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that. And the more you talk, like, I think that we have a really good panel for all kinds of questions. So Genevieve, you're kind of like, obviously you're a teacher, you're actively homeschooling, and you said you're changing the syllabus up every week, which is like got to be a lot of work. So you're kind of like, I'd say, on the expert side of things. Robert, you mentioned something earlier, and I don't remember the name of it. did you say like an online system? Charter. So it's basically an online school. And what do you think about that?
It's a public school. The one that we have our daughter enrolled in is called Ohio Virtual Academy, and they use the K-12 program. And it's, for us, it's working really well. We didn't go with a traditional homeschool because that's a lot of work on the parents, and we both work full time, and so we don't really have the time to do that level of commitment. So we chose to, but we needed to keep her home for the social aspects. And so having a public school where there's still state mandated testing, where there's still a certain curriculum, you still need to take these courses and get credits for them in order to graduate. That didn't really bother us whatsoever. Now, in regards to vouchers, as I was listening to this discussion, one of the things that they do is they actually reimburse part of our broadband internet service. So every 3 to 4 months, we submit all our bills, and they'll give us a credit for that. And so, I mean, I don't know what's going on in what's being proposed in the law books or anything, but I was thinking one of the solutions to people not taking advantage of just collecting a big check so that they can homeschool their children and then really not do anything is it could be more of a reimbursement program. So I know on the one hand, as Genevieve was saying, that, you know, you get the government involved more, and then you have more strings attached and more regulations and things like that. And she wants the freedom from all of that. In a situation like me, you know, or maybe something that's kind of halfway in between, you know, we could go out and buy books and other things that we would need for schooling our child, and then have it reimbursed. That way, the money is actually paying for the stuff, and not actually going into our pockets. You know, so it seems to me like it would be a good solution.
Does your daughter need to meet certain benchmarks in terms of performance or testing at the end of the year for you to get your reimbursement for broadband?
I don't believe so. I can't answer that honestly, but I don't believe so. I think the fact that she's enrolled,
and then but she's attending every day, so they have like an attendance record every time she's checking in.
Yes, there's actually with this system, she does it over the computer, and so like at various times throughout the day, she has to log on with her webcam and mic, just like we're doing here, and she has to physically or virtually attend class. So yes, and then and she has to complete her courses and get passing grades if she expects to get a diploma from the charter school.
And
so it is a public school.
How do you feel about the instruction that she's receiving? Is it on par with what she would experience in a classroom?
It's a little more self-guided. So I do think that the curriculum or the teachers could be spend a little more time with students and be a little more effective. So you lose that. I think you lose that person-to-person element of actually having the teacher in the class. You can walk up to the desk and ask a question. I mean, they can still do that, send an email, post something in a forum, but there's something to be said about, you know, person-to-person contact and that kind of instruction. So, you know, in this situation, I see learning from someone knee to knee versus across a TV screen would probably be more effective, but she's doing well.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Sonia. I see you in the comments. Can she?
I don't know. Can she not see?
Or maybe not.
I don't know. She said no audio. She sent us a message. So an interesting, we spent a lot of time talking about homeschooling, and there's one of the things Leah hit on is if you had, maybe it's like an urban environment, and you have a lot of kids that all of a sudden get these vouchers, and their parents have the motivation to take them out of the city to go to, I don't know, what's quote unquote either because it is or perceived to be a better education experience. What do you guys think about that? Like, is that something that you think would cause an issue, or what?
Is Genevieve going first? Okay. All right. So I would say that everybody does have the right to give their kids a good education. If I couldn't afford to live in a better neighborhood and my kids were stuck at a bad school, of course I'd love the option to send them elsewhere. But you also pose a problem to those in that school because you're going to cause overcrowding. You're going to potentially, I hate to say, you're going to potentially bring the wrong crowd to these other kinds of schools, and it's just kind of it's complicated. I mean, you play both sides of it, but there's really no right answer, I don't think.
So the way I kind of always thought about it is, at heart, I'm kind of like pro-business, and although nobody really wants to think of a school as a business, in a lot of way it is. And if you thought about it like a private school, if you all of a sudden got a wash of money coming into your school, more money than you experienced in the past, then you would either have like two options, right? You'd either have to increase the size of your school, or maybe change the size of the classes and whatever logistics capacity there are. It's that term that people use all the time, a good problem to have. Right. For that school, it's a good problem to have. For the school that possibly has the perception of being the bad school, and I hate to use like the urban environment, it's kind of just the one that most people know of, that school would suffer, right? And so, well, what does that mean? Are they in no power to change what they're doing to be more like the other school? I think that if you go to a voucher system, that you would incentivize everyone, administration through the teachers, to want to be more competitive, to fight for that money. Whether or not that would take away from some of the precious time that teachers have to spend, I don't know. I obviously can't comment on that. But it's at least an interesting concept that you would kind of incentivize the entire group to either become better or constantly strive to be better at what they do, to fight for those vouchers, because you put the power back in the pockets of the parents, right? To spend. That's a really interesting concept, right? So you're what do we always say? Like, the power of the people is usually in their wallet, like where they spend their money. That's how people pick winners and losers, in the business sense. So you're literally kind of requiring that the schools start to do things that would incentivize the parents to want to pick them. Now, whether that means that their kids are actually coming out well educated or not, don't know. But you would shift the focus, where right now the focus is on the money comes from the public through the tax fund, and the kids are kind of like, or the experts level of education of what's considered the education all kids should come out of high school with is kind of like the goal. And then sometimes we kind of fall off of that road to try and get to that goal. But if you change it the other way around and be like, well, we have to stay in business, and the only way to stay in business is the perception that we're a good school, whether we are or not really doesn't matter, as long as the perception is we're good. And then how do we get those vouchers, right? That's literally what you turned it into. You turned it into like a free market paradise almost. It kind of.
Pretty libertarian.
It's very. I don't know who.
I thought we were talking politics.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say.
No, yeah, it's not.
Cut that.
Yeah, I'm not editing this. This is live. It's not so much political as it's like you feel the same way whether you're choosing to go to Walmart or Target. Why do you go to Target over Walmart, right? So why would you pick one school over another school? Same idea.
Because Cat and Jack clothes are so cute.
Oh, because they got that dog though. Any thoughts on my diatribe there?
I was just wondering, like, don't you think that teachers and principals and other administrative staff actually care about what their school is and the value of education they're providing their children anyway, with or without a voucher?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No question. I'm not asserting that everybody that's a principal today and every teacher is not focused on that. But at the same time, by going to vouchers, you will fundamentally change the quote unquote market of education. That's what that will do. Will that yield a more educated child in the long run? I don't know. But you are fundamentally increasing the choice that the parents have. And that's possibly something we don't have as much of now. It's kind of like a one size fits all.
So Sonia in the comments actually has a good question, and it's how much would a homeschooler receive? Or, how much is a voucher worth, really?
It depends on the law, right?
Yeah.
It can vary.
Yeah, I can't right now. I don't even know how to
It
make
depends on the school district.
1,000 a student thrown around. And I think that there was, recently it came out that in order to fund this, there's a request for 1.4 billion to expand the voucher program.
Mm-hmm.
So
the answer is we don't exactly know.
we don't know exactly, but it's anywhere from maybe 5,000 or more.
Okay, per year.
Per year.
Yeah,
So,
I
I mean,
think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I did a little bit of research and I saw there are some states that are already doing a voucher system. They're getting about $4,800 a year per student. So
That's pretty substantial, actually.
it is. It is.
I think about what I could buy to educate the kids at home. Right now, our oldest is 3. He's in Montessori. And I mean, I could buy all of the Montessori materials that I wanted for his age group in 1 year based off of that.
Right.
How much, if you like, how much do we pay for Montessori?
Like over 9,000.
Right. So already pay, like, how much are you going to get total for 48? That's a tough question. Is that really the number of what it costs? I mean, understand, we're in Southern California. LA school district is the most expensive school district, possibly one of the worst. Our rent is like one of the worst in the nation, and we're the most expensive. So our dollar per education goes much shorter distance than everybody else's dollar goes in the rest of the country.
How much is the charter school?
Oh, good question. Yeah, Robert, what do you think?
I have no idea. It doesn't cost me a thing.
Because it's a public school.
Because it is a public school. It's a public online virtual school.
So obviously there's a limitation.
Maybe charter is not the right word for it. So, but I do know that my local school jurisdiction, they lose the funding for me withdrawing my daughter, and the online charter school or the online public school, they get the funding. So I know that those tax dollars are reallocated based on where my daughter's attending. But it is still a public school, even though it's done over the internet through a computer.
So what were the requirements for her to get in? There's obviously has to be a cap, right? Because there's no limit to how many people are on the internet. So did you have to test in, or what was it?
We just enrolled. I know there's about 5 of them here in Ohio, and we researched all 5 of them. This is the one that seemed to perform better. One of the things that did concern me was that students at these online virtual schools tend to fare worse than students in a public school. And so when we sat down as a family, I said, if we're going to do this, this really concerns me. I don't want you to become a statistic. But that things that factor into that is the student has to be a good self-starter, and the parents, even though we both work, we still have to be involved with our child's education. And this is, I think, personally, I believe this is true of all parents, whether you're sending your kids to school or whether you're doing the charter school, then all the more so if you're doing a true homeschool system where you make your own curriculum. As a parent, you have to be involved with the education of your child.
Right.
Definitely.
So it's kind of a further question in that area. They have a limit of how many students they can have, right?
I would imagine so. I'm sure, just like a classroom setting, I'm sure there's a limited amount of students you can have per teacher.
Right.
I would think that would be law more than it would be school policy, but I'm not sure.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting idea because by going online, you don't require a building anymore for the kids to go to. So there's technically not a limit. You just have to have enough quote unquote teachers monitoring the kids or a certain class of kids, right? So they can scale very easily.
Yeah, and that's what they probably do have that advantage over a public school system is they get all that funding that the public school system would have, and yet they don't have maintenance on the building, they don't have heating costs, they don't have cooling costs or anything like that. So
I think we're going to open an online school.
So here's my opinion about when it comes to like homeschooling, basically about the homeschooling versus going to an actual building. I understand for a lot of people, it's the best choice. Maybe their children are sick, they require extra attention, or they're just having a really bad experience in school. But for me, I kind of have like the old school thinking of it's part of actually going to school, being around other kids who may or may not be bullying you, and learning to do what your teachers say is part of the learning lesson. Like, you have to kind of learn your place in society, and I feel like school kind of helps with that. Like, if you're at home, say, mommy, I need something. Yes, honey, what do you need? And you run right to them. You're in a classroom, you can't call out. You got to raise your hand and wait till the teacher decides to call on you. Like, that's part of learning social skills and again, your place in the world. And I feel like if you don't have that opportunity to go to the school and be around mean kids or rotten teachers who aren't going to give you extra, special attention, you're kind of missing out on some important life lessons there.
Yeah, so I heard you support bullying, rotten kids, bad teachers.
Not quite. No.
That was my takeaway from that one.
Not quite that bad. Like, I was bullied terribly. And you know what? Yeah. I'm a better person because of it. Like, I'm not saying kids should be bullied, but even when they have siblings, what does their older brother do? You're gonna beat them up and kick them off whatever they want. It's right. Like, you have to learn your place in society.
The world's tough. The world's a tough place. And if you make it's interesting, Genevieve, you can probably talk about this. K through 5 or K through 6, we probably shouldn't have that, right? It should be a safer space for kids to and learn, right? But when you get towards the high school area, you're kind of going to have to get to the point where you realize life is kind of hard, unless you're really lucky. Like, life is going to be difficult, and I'm not saying that home. So that's a really interesting point. The more I'm thinking about it, because it's almost like you're saying that by homeschooling, you're creating an extra kind of safety blanket.
Yeah, it's way too sheltered. They're going to go out. I know people, relatives of mine.
This chat's not about homeschooling, but we're bringing up such good points on homeschooling. We have such good people in here to talk about homeschooling that it's great to cover it. Yeah,
I hope you're not feeling picked on, Genevieve.
No, I said it's great. In some cases, it's necessary, but other cases, and it's they spend their whole 1 to 12 in homeschool, and then they go off to college, and it's like a culture shock. Like, what do you mean I have to wait my turn? What do you mean you don't want to play with me? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a whole different world outside of the home and outside of mommy and daddy.
I think that there is this preconceived notion about homeschoolers. Like, we are part of a huge homeschooling group. We see 3 times a week. We go camping with them. We are around them all of the time. They're like kids that they socialize more than kids that I knew that when I was in the classroom. I mean, because when they are together, they're allowed to talk. They're allowed to run and do whatever it is they're going to do. Where like in the classroom, it's like, no talking. No, you can't do that. And yes, we do have those moments too. When I'm teaching, you can trust that my son is not getting what he wants when he needs it. Unless it's like an emergency, you have to go to the bathroom. Like, we're doing school right now. And it does have to be structured to some extent. But as far as like the socialization and seeing other kids, like, we are part of a huge group, and now with Facebook and stuff, there are a lot more options. We're part of 2 homeschooling groups, and they're huge. I mean, and we're seeing these kids multiple times, so they're going to be kids that they grow up with just like as if they were in a regular traditional school.
Mm-hmm. So you're definitely securing time in your weekly syllabus to bully your children, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What's a bully?
But seriously, I want to
need that life lesson.
Yeah, and I'm in no way. I think there is obviously a preconceived notion of homeschoolers. I think that has to be because most of us are public schooled, and a smaller percentage is private schooled. And anything change or different is scary, and we ostracize that thing. So anytime when we're talking, please throw some facts out there that correct it. And obviously you're going to have a community, whether that community is online or physical, right? You're going to have to do that, to reach out.
Yeah, so, definitely.
We're nearing the end of our time here. Does anybody have some final thoughts before we start talking about our channels and where to find us?
I was just following up on what we were discussing. I know in the online charter school that we use, they have events where you can get together with other students. They still have like your school dances. They still have field trips. And they'll still organize various locations where kids can get together and socialize. I also think a lot of that has to do, again, with that parental involvement. I have friends of mine who I grew up with that were homeschooled, and they weren't socialized very well, and now they're my age, 41, and they still struggle to this day. And then I have other ones whose parents did really, really well, homeschooled them all their lives, but yet made sure that they were social. So when me and my wife started having kids, we always desired that they at least make it through the elementary years, because we did think that kind of socialization was important, how to deal with other children, how to deal with adults, get exposed to things that we wouldn't expose them to, maybe not even necessarily would want to expose them to, but it's kind of just necessary for them to grow up as well-rounded individuals. So again, that's the parental involvement. And it sounds like Meredith does a fantastic job with her children.
No, listen, I know I sound harsh, but listen, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I learned how to be tough and be street smart because, I mean, I'm not saying at all that bullying is a good thing. I am very much against bullying, but it does kind of toughen you up a little bit. It's going to happen, like it kind of toughens you up a little bit, even just a little bit,
That kind of depends on the student too. It'll toughen some students up, and it could completely traumatize and damage others. So there's some various factors that come into play there. But it still comes down to that as parents, we kind of have to realize what our children's needs are, and then see what options we have. So for one child, they're still in public school, 5th grade. That's still easy. The other one got up into the middle school, and now we've brought her home, and we'll see if that may not happen with the younger one. I'm not sure. So only time will tell.
Anything else? Any parting comments?
Okay, let's talk about each of our channels. Who are we gonna? Yeah,
we'll just go our left to right again. So Genevieve, you're first. Go ahead and shout out your channel and everything you're working on. It's amazing online, or in person. If you've got some meetup thing going, that's cool too.
Yeah, well, I am part of some awesome homeschool groups, which for people who are homeschooling, I definitely encourage you to go on Facebook and check out the local groups, even the bigger groups. I'm part of a homeschool group that we have like 23,000 members in it, and they actually do national meetups once a year, where everybody gets to meet if you can go and you do a camping trip. But my channel's Our Tiny Kingdom. It's like a family life vlog type thing, following our journey after my brain surgery and just kind of rebuilding ourselves. We also have a family gaming channel that's always kid friendly, because I get tired of my kids watching these gamers cursing, and I'm like, turn it off. I was that crazy lady that's like, no, you can't watch this YouTube channel. So we wanted something safe for kids, and they were begging for a YouTube channel. And we're also building our website, which is a homeschool resources website. So that's what we're doing.
Cool.
What video games do they play?
Well, we have a Nintendo Switch, because we felt that was like the safest gaming platform for them, because there's like no first-person shooter games, which at 5 and 7 they don't need.
Right.
So we have a Nintendo Switch. We basically do Mario Kart, Splatoon, Minecraft, Zelda, those kinds of.
Oh, that's Zelda though.
Yeah, Zelda's amazing.
That's the audio. Whenever an audio kicks, it switches. Okay, Meredith.
I am Meredith. My channel is Surviving as Mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4 young boys. There are 2, 5, and 8-year-old twins, and I really just vlog about our life, and I do recipes. I do shopping hauls, cleaning, organizing, all that stuff.
Excellent. Okay, Robert, go for it.
Okay, so my channel is generically called Robert Angle Vlogs. You can find me at youtube.com/RobertAngle. I got a couple forwarders that do the same thing, bdrc.tv, robertangle.com. It'll all send you to the same place. And really, I started just kind of experimenting with video editing as a hobby, and I would record events that me and my family did together and upload them to share them with other family members who live out of state. I live in Ohio. I've got family members out in Texas and then Virginia, and in South Carolina. And so this was a way to share content, share what we're doing with family far away. And then the subscriber numbers started going up. And so now I've kind of feel a little more responsibility to try and be entertaining and actually talk to the audience. And so we'll throw in there some goofy activities, some pranks or something, just because we feel a responsibility to this climbing subscriber number now. So
well, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so we're rebranding it as Better Days Are Coming, because we want to incorporate a positive message into it as well as entertain everybody. So.
Do you want to talk about just like your personal channel?
I can. Yeah, I'm
yourself.
My YouTube persona is Hoshnasi. It's Hoshnasi. I've been on YouTube for 15 years. Been making videos for forever, basically. Anytime I have a new hobby or a new interest, I make a video on it. And I kind of have a following of dads. My core demographic is dudes 25 to 35 and then up from there. And it's dad things. Literally dad things. Cars, ham radio, and we do prospecting every once in a while, metal detecting, literally the squarest dad stuff possible. And I started vlogging, I stopped vlogging to do this new thing that we're trying here. But yeah, 600 plus days of vlogging every day. That's
while he was working a full-time job.
Yeah, I'm an engineer. I'm an aerospace engineer. So that.
I'll just throw that out there. That tiny little bit of awesome information. That's really cool.
Nothing to do with what I like to do, which is videos and obviously swinging a metal detector around. But yeah. So Leia, though, you. Kind of her debut on YouTube. I've been doing it for 10 years, and this is like the first time she's really ever been in front of a camera.
Actually, I used to do these DIY videos, which like each one has almost 500,000 views. And it was like way back before there were tons of crafters. So I had done that like 3 or 4 years ago, and then I had kids. So I went to crafting people and stopped doing anything else. And now we've decided to do this as a family. So our channel, which, this video is going to sit on, is vlogs, mukbangs, which is where we have the kids try, and we try different dishes. From
Mukbang is Korean for eating show, by the way. We eat food in front of a camera.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I'm super passionate about right now early childhood education. I actually used to work at a tutoring school, and I'm really focused on exposing the kids to all those things. So I have an Instagram that does that, and then what else? Oh, and I write a column for family trips in our local newspaper.
You're published locally.
in addition to working.
Right.
Yeah.
So the good news is that for everybody watching this, everybody's information is already in the description. You can go to their channels right now and check them out and subscribe. And this is an awesome little panel because we got such a good, diverse experience range in the whole area. And probably a lot of questions were answered for homeschooling. We should tag homeschooling in the video for sure, because there's a lot. I think a lot of good information there that definitely go to everybody's channel and check them out for what it is they're doing.
So I really want to thank all of you guys for being part of this. This was a super fun conversation and really a great first, shot at all of this. I mean, I don't think it could have gone any better.
No, this is fun.
Nobody cursed at anybody, and
oh wait, we were allowed to do that?
We really followed the rules on not going political and having a decorum. That was awesome.
So for everybody watching, please check out all of the collaborators here. And if you have an idea for a future topic for this discussion, in the comments. If you'd like to be a part of the panel in the future, also in the comments.
Yeah,
okay?
We're definitely going to do one on bullying. How to bully.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Thanks, everybody.
The point, totally.
Have a great weekend.